Hey everybody, welcome to another painting class. Today I'm going to be painting pine trees in the evening, and so if you're going to be painting along or just watching and relaxing, thanks for joining me. So let's get started. First I will draw a line across about a third of the way up, not a straight line because this is ground. Now I have cadmium orange on my plate, my styrofoam plate palette, and I will begin to just fill in the sky with straight cadmium orange. This is an undercoat, so I'm not going to be blending other colors with it right now. It's just going to be straight cadmium orange. Fill it in. We will be painting over this with many other colors, but that's all you need for now. Probably would have been easier if I would have used a little bit larger brush. Oh well, getting lots of brush strokes in there. Okay, basic undercoat is finished for the sky. Next, I am going to use burnt umber for the undercoat of the ground. Burnt umber is just dark brown. Just fill that in. There you go, you fill the whole bottom section in. All right, there we go. Got the basic undercoat done. After the undercoat is dry, then I am taking a pen and just drawing a line. You don't have to necessarily use a pen, but this is going to be the first trunk of one of the pine trees, and I'm doing it at approximately a third of the way over from the right because that's going to be the main tree. And so one of the most important rules of painting is that important things are usually on the third. Don't have to do that, of course, but drawing a few more lines which are going to be pine trees. Okay, now I'm going to use a flat brush, about an inch wide brush, using Pthalo Blue and Titanium White, mixing them together, and begin painting the limbs of this first pine tree. And I'm using very small strokes, downward strokes coming across, back and forth, making the shapes of the limbs of the pine tree, and they dip down a little bit usually and then start to curve up just a little bit. They're not absolutely symmetrical, precise, but try to make them approximately a little bit larger each one as they go down, a little bit thicker towards the middle of the tree. Come down over the edge of the ground there. Now start working on the other pine trees. You can see I went over the trunk of the tree with my brush there, So if you used a pencil, you can use a brush. Okay, getting a little thicker as we go down further on the trunk. Getting a little wider, a little more dense. Finishing up the other pine trees. Isn't it amazing how you can create a pine tree so quickly with just a flat brush? Just amazing. I love painting pine trees. Do these last couple pine trees over here in the distance. And some very small pine tree shapes in the distance, and throw a little bit of detail into the foreground. Just begin to get some undercoat done, which I can come back over. Now painting a little bit of a pine tree off to the right side. Just some of the branches coming out. Now we're going to put a glaze on the painting. This is a mixture of gloss polymer medium and matte medium, and we are going to mix that with some Alizarin Crimson and make a glaze which we will put over the whole painting. Now you have to wait until the whole painting is dry before you put the glaze on. So if your painting is still not dry, wait a few minutes, then begin to add the glaze, and we are going to cover the whole canvas with this glaze of Alizarin Crimson mixed with gloss polymer medium and matte medium. Now if you want to, you could just use gloss polymer medium or matte medium, but I like to use a mixture because it gives it just a little bit of a shine. And when you use a glaze and then go back over it with paint, it just makes the whole painting look much richer. And you can let little parts of the glaze shine through here and there. So cover the whole painting there. Now let's start painting the sky. We have titanium white, cadmium red, cadmium orange, and yellow ochre. And we will be mixing those together in various ways in the sky. So first I'm mixing orange and white. Begin to paint some clouds behind these trees. Using a small brush, maybe a ½ inch brush, and doing a lot of strokes downward. It's a very light orange start on these clouds. One of the great things about painting landscapes is when you can paint something behind something else, it creates a sense of distance. Like these clouds behind the trees create a sense of distance in the background, make the trees stand out more too. Continuing to mix these colors together, starting to get some patterns going behind the trees. Now normally when I paint landscapes, the horizon skyline is usually a little bit lighter than the sky as it goes up. Okay, now I've got some cadmium red here. I'm going to mix white and red just to get some pink in the sky. And we will keep adding and varying these colors in the sky. So as I make it a little bit lighter down on the horizon line, it just makes it stand out even further. One of the principles of art is repetition and variation. And so you see that I am repeating and varying the cloud shapes behind the trees. Also, the trees are repeated and varied as a shape. Now I'm adding some light orange and yellow ochre mixed with white. So you see we start with a very simple underpainting and then just keep adding more and more to it. Now we have white, yellow ochre, Alizarin Crimson down on the left, Pthalo Blue, and yellow, Cadmium Yellow Medium, to do some more work on the sky. So I'm going to start off by mixing a little bit of white and blue together. Just add some light blue into the clouds. Taking it behind the pines here. Add some light blue up into the clouds up here in the sky. The more you can come behind objects, the more it makes them stand out. As I've said earlier, light blue up here in the top of the sky. Just continuing to add little dabs. Do these little tiny dabs and dashes because I like to paint in an impressionist style. So now adding some lighter blue down in the foreground. Now let's mix some Alizarin Crimson and white, and that makes a pinkish tone or a magenta-like tone. Again, adding it in, dabbing it into the sky, just creating variety into the sky. Now we'll take some orange and begin to mix that in. Covering up some of the areas where it's just a glaze over the undercoat, mixing orange with Alizarin Crimson and white. Just all kinds of variations on orange. So we started with a plain, simple orange undercoat, then gave it a glaze. Now we're just adding lots of variations to the sky. Mixing some orange and yellow. More variations on the color of orange we started with. Now I have Pthalo Green and Pthalo Blue and Titanium White, and we will begin doing variations of those colors together and working on the pine trees. So first I'm mixing Pthalo Green and white. just begin to come into the pine trees now. And I'm always thinking as I'm painting, what direction is the light coming from? So I'm thinking, okay, that generally they would be a little bit lighter on the top, and if there's a shadow area on the branches, that would be underneath. So I start with this Pthalo Green. Now I'm mixing some Pthalo Blue and white. So green, blue, white variations on that for the pine trees. And I'm letting some of the undercoat shine through, not completely filling them in, just dabbing them in here and there. Coming down below the horizon line a little bit with this tree, and then a couple trees in the background. Keep working on all these trees. See, it's just one little step at a time. Did the sky just a little bit at a time. Now doing the trees just a step at a time. Letting some of the undercoat shine through. You can always go back over later. Add more to it. All right, come down here in the foreground a little bit with that green and blue. Now we're going to work on the foreground with burnt sienna, burnt umber on the left, and yellow ochre. Those are all variations of brown. So burnt sienna and yellow ochre. Burnt sienna is a reddish brown. Yellow ochre is a yellowish brown. So mixing those together, filling in the foreground. Again, we leave some of the background showing through. We can always go back over it. Now, taking those same three colors, only using the dark one, burnt umber, going to make some little tiny touches here and there. I'm painting the trunk of this tree right now, and I'm going to just be adding little touches of burnt umber, because that contrast of that dark color here and there, just little dabs of it, will really just make the painting begin to pop. So you can see that I'm adding just little bits of burnt umber all throughout the painting, in the trees especially. The trunks of the trees, shadows in the trees. And all those little tiny dabs of burnt umber just make the painting just more interesting. Now adding some more yellow ochre and burnt sienna into the foreground. Now I've got cadmium red, alizarin crimson, orange, yellow, and white. And I'm going to work some more in the sky. Again, I'm adding more of a white and a little bit of those other colors mixed in here and there in the clouds. Again, the contrast, the bright white here and there, just will make it pop. Okay, so you can see I've got that white, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of alizarin crimson. Make a pink color, a light pink, add that into the clouds. So you can see I don't work on any one area in great detail, but I work over the whole painting. And as you saw this painting develop, one of the principles which I've mentioned in the past is you start with general and move to specific. You start with large areas, and then you move, as the painting develops, to more detail. Now I'm adding more variations of of pinks and oranges and reds and light reds in the sky. Just make it much more detailed, more interesting. Just tiny dabs here and there. Lots of little dabs, lots of little details. Now I've got my plate with Pthalo Blue, Pthalo Green, and white on it again, and a very fine brush. And I'm going to be adding Pthalo Blue, just straight dark blue in lots of different areas. Again, tiny little bits of blue that make the painting just pop with the intensity of the dark contrasts. So before I used burnt umber for some of these dark areas, now I'm putting little dabs of Pthalo Blue. Now working back again in the sky on the horizon. Just keep adding to it, keep thickening the paint, keep adding brighter colors. Now I added a little bit of light browns, yellow ochre, burnt sienna in the foreground there. Back up into the trees here. Now I've got yellow, and I'm going to mix that with Pthalo Green. So it makes a really nice shade of green, which I'm going to add more into the pine trees. So see you keep adding more here and there. As I've said before, to me painting is like working on a jigsaw puzzle. I look up and I add some yellow here, and then I look over there and I say, oh, now it needs some blue over there. Oh, now after I've added that, it needs a little bit of red over there. So I just keep adding to the pine trees here. Back to my palette that has white, red, orange, alizarin crimson, and yellow. Just working some more into the sky. I'm just making the top of this tree just a little sharper. So you can just keep going back in and sharpening things up with acrylics. That's what I like about them. Acrylics and oils, you can go back and cover over things and make them thinner, sharper, whatever. So adding just a little bit more color in the sky. Sharpening up the top of that pine tree. See, you develop the details little by little here. So what began as a sky that was just one color of straight orange has now developed into lots and lots of variations of orange and red and magenta and pinkish colors and yellow ochre and white, orange and white. Come back down here to the horizon line a little bit in the background. So you can see as the painting has developed, now I'm working on smaller and smaller little brush strokes here and there across the painting. Lots of tiny little strokes with a small brush. Adding a little bit of orange into the foreground. Now I've got my Pthalo Blue again. So you start a painting with larger brushes, and as it develops you use smaller, finer brushes. And there we have it, all done. Thanks for painting along with me or watching this. Hope you had fun. I sure did. Thanks again.